be a light for you in dark places when all other lights go out.
Hello everyone, this is DCHL Devin, and welcome to another How to Play, How to Buy video. And today we are going to discuss one of the more beloved factions in the game, Numenor. This army received a lot of love by the Middle Earth team. Not in the sense of new units, which we may see in the future, but instead all the profiles being completely revamped to be a lot stronger to represent those 7-foot tall Numenorian counterparts we see in the films. This is welcome changes, and we can absolutely say this is now a playable faction. However, the big discussion is, can they operate on their own, or do they need to wait for their new units? That's what we're going to go ahead and discuss today. We're going to discuss all the pros, the cons, and of course how to buy, though despite that, there's actually not too many different ways to buy this army given they only have one troop type. And of course the how to play. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Let's discuss the pros of the Numenorian army. And the first one we have to mention is you have access to some of the strongest heroes in the game. This is King Elendil, who is already easily in the top 5 most powerful good heroes in the game. I mean, we're talking about a fight 7, barely loses any fights, strength 5, mastercrafted sword, so he's getting +1 to wound, often only needing 5s even on the onset, and then can call free hero combats, allowing him to destroy 2-4 men at a time without a problem. You're generally going to kill about 4 models a turn with this guy. He's constantly moving through ranks, and he can slaughter through infantry at a very quick pace. 4 models might not sound like a lot, but when you ask us the fact that most armies are 39 models or less, then he pretty much gets through the job almost on his own. In fact, the rest of the army almost feels like it wants to supplement him. Not only on top of that, though, he can barely be transfixed. He's already naturally fortified, getting 2 free rolls just to resist spells. And he's highly courageous. He's a hero of legend, making him highly economical, even for his points cost. This is a hero that you don't want to leave without. Even in low points games, I really can't justify not taking him. He's just a must pick within the army. It doesn't really stop there, though. You have Isildur as well, his son. And Isildur, although not as powerful nearly, he's a little more economical for his points, but he also gets the job done as far as being strength 5, fight 6 is still very good, and has 3 attacks and everything you need for him to function. Now, he also has the ring. However, since you can't use it while mounted, you'll probably not see it come into play quite as often. But it is an option should he be dismounted, that he can now half the fight value of those he's fighting against just because he can turn invisible. So these are 2 of the most powerful heroes in the game. I mean, bar none, they defeat most others in their path, and this is an absolute boon to this force. Next, we got to talk about resistance to magic. Now, this army is actually highly resistant to magic, which is given pretty much by Anarion, Isildur, and Elendil. Now, you may have noticed I didn't talk about Anarion. It's because he's only mentioned in their profiles. Clearly a future-proofing of the game, maybe for a Last Alliance supplement. But for now, the only 2 big heroes are Elendil and Isildur. This doesn't happen around the captains, but otherwise, they get resistance to magic across the board. Now, magic has been toned down quite a bit in this game. But that's not to say it's not useful. You're still going to see magic quite a bit, especially in your Gondor forces and such. Saruman, I'm pretty sure, is going to be popular. Radagast is going to be much more popular nowadays. And, of course, the evil Ringwraiths are still great on a Fell Beast. They're going to try to neutralize your heroes. They're going to try to cast spells. And the fact that you can resist it pretty much across the board is a very useful ability to have. The next thing we got to talk about is the Strength 4 component of the Numenorians. Now, this is a little unusual from the past. In the past, they were Fight 4, Strength 3. Now, as they always should have been, they are Strength 4. Remember, we're talking about 7-foot tall warriors. These guys were massive, legends of their day, and so they absolutely should have been Strength 4. They don't have the defense value that I would think they should have, but we'll get into that in the cons section of this video. But with Strength 4 and Fight 4, what that means is not only can you win fights often, but you can also make sure you kill the target that you're actually attacking. Strength 4 will mean that you need nothing higher than a 6 on most targets, other than like a Vault Warden, but Defense 9 and higher is pretty rare in this game. So Strength 4 is a very, very awesome boon to them. The last thing we'll mention as far as the pros is their army bonus. Now, I kind of don't view every single army bonus as a pro. I actually will tell you in these videos if I think that some of them are actually useless. But in this case, I would say that this is one of those pretty good army bonuses. You get +1 courage across the entire army. The best part about this is, one, it's not localized to a central hero, which a lot of bonuses are, and two, you can't turn it off. Your opponent can't kill a very specific hero or something like that in order to stop you from getting +1 courage. I would actually recommend keeping this bonus if possible. Now, while it is possible to function on Courage 3, you don't have an access to Warhorns. You'll have to ally for that. So if an opponent has a Nazgul, you're bumping down to Courage 2, and that is that danger zone to be in, especially for break tests and such like that. So getting a natural Courage of 4 is a bonus that I actually would value. The only issue with this bonus, of course, is that it is easily achieved through a Warhorn or another means, or even being completely fearless, as we'll discuss later. So let's go ahead and get into the cons of this army. Now, I could mention a lot of pros because the army is fairly small. Fortunately, the cons kind of outnumbered in my opinion. First off, this army feels like it was made to ally with the elves, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But Numenor really fought with the elves heavily only one time, so I'm not really sure if the models that come out within Last Alliance future supplements will help this, but they're missing a lot of key components they need. A lot of little buffs and such, namely like archery and such like that, and we'll get into it through the rest of these cons. So they have a defense 5 base for a high cost. Now that is the issue. They are defense 5 with a shield and their armor. I guess the lore-wise reason for this is that their armor is thousands of years old, and therefore the generations of metalwork is a lot less. This doesn't make any sense for a lot of other options, so I don't really know 100% true if that's true, but unfortunately they are defense 5. They probably should have been defense 6, but this means that every time you lose a fight, your guys will die. And remember, your guys are about 9 to 10 points when fully loaded out. So this means that you have very elite pointed troops that die quickly if they lose. That's kind of the unfortunate part about them. So you will get destroyed by hordes. If you have Goblin Town, Lake Town, or any other army that has access to about 45 plus models, you just simply will not have the numbers to deal with them. Over time, I mean, you're gonna roll low. Yes, you have a nice fight value, but you're gonna roll low, and when that happens, it often means your death. So, and with very few models to spare, that's never a good thing. No cavalry is the next thing. Cavalry are essential for this mobility style game, and they have almost none to speak of. They only have their captains. Now, that's not an issue for all armies, like say hordes. They generally don't have cavalry, but as mentioned, you are an elite style army. So you're small in number, often needing to stay together and make sure that you can use your fight value to your max potential. When you don't have a quick mobile troop to go and capture objectives or swing around and such like that, it does create kind of a lack of tactical ability and options. You're often going to feel that you have to play the scenario almost as a last-minute decision with this kind of army. In other words, domination. You'll ignore the objectives almost until you've completely destroyed your opponent and then start scattering around, which is not a bad way to play it, but the fact that you're forced to play it that way is a bit unfortunate. So next, you have weak range. You have no siege weapons and no decent archery. We're talking about 24-inch bows, yes, but Strength 2 never won a war too often unless you had either a spamming of it or the ability to reroll a wound like Harad does or something like that. These bows come at a very high cost, which means they're going to have to join the battle as soon as you meet, and that's something you have to take into account. Also, without siege weapons, that means you're often coming to your opponent. Siege weapons are going to be popular in this game, so you do need something that can deal with the range. Without blinding light and without enough archery on your own, which you're not going to get with these high-costed troops, unfortunately you're often playing to your opponent's battlefield. I still would take archery, but probably in a different form as we'll discuss in the how to play. Next, you have a lack of hero options. You basically got to take Elendil or Isildur. I tried the list out with all captains. It doesn't work fantastically. Fight 5 is good, but it's definitely not going to win you games, especially in this age where big heroes can walk through your army. You need something to counter big heroes. If you don't have anything, then an Aragorn or a Sauron or something like that, they're just going to walk through everything. So your only option to this being Isildur and Elendil. So with all of that out of the way, let's go into the how to play part of this video. So first off, you're going to need to take Elendil. All right, he's just, like I said, he's a must pick. take him, start your army there. All right. Then what you're going to want to do is probably, depending on how you want to, let's talk about this in the sense of allying and not allying, because I do think allying is a little essential in this army. So if you don't ally at all, then your options are pretty simple. Take Elendil. You could probably fit a captain after that, and maybe a Sealdor in most point games, and then just kit out with what you need on the troops. Do standard front rank shield, back rank spears. You do want archers who have spears. Whether or not you give them shields as well is a bit debatable, but being able to shield with your entire army is very, very useful. If you do take a captain, make sure he's mounted. You don't have any cav options, so it's nice when you get to have a mounted captain with a lance. He does hit pretty hard, actually. You can try out the all-captain variant of this, but, you know, like I said, it's up to your own risk. You fight an Elrond, and you're going to really regret it. So after that, just remember that you don't have March. No one has March, so captains are essential for a lot of speed-based missions. And if you're getting across the field like reconnoiter, stuff like that. Also, siege weapons, if you are dealing with them, Elendil only has 1 fate, which means 2 well-placed siege weapon shots, or 1 if you really roll badly, can pretty much be the end of him. So you do want to move very quickly. Now, in the sense where Cavalry is not so needed is the fact that Elendil can kill so quickly. But that's the problem, like I said, is that you need him so much that your opponent is going to focus fire on him. Make sure to absolutely block people from shooting at him if possible. You do want him on the horse, but I'll be honest, he does function pretty well without it. He gets the +1 to wound regardless. It's a mastercrafted sword that he has. It was Narso. So these are things that I absolutely would suggest taking. But otherwise, the army is pretty simple to play from the aspect of, like, once it's on the field. I mean, use the Numenorians as a supplemental force to Elendil. Elendil must do all the killing, and then the Numenorians kind of just create your ranks. It's not very complicated. This is a very, very standard force. If you guys have played anything with a spear and shield, you're going to play it pretty much in the most obvious manner. Because your army is so few, you probably won't be able to do a lot of flanking maneuvers and such like that. So this is where the army will kind of feel a bit limiting. So let's get into the allies, which is where I really think this army shines. And I do think it shines very well with the elves. The elves kind of mitigate a few disadvantages you have. 1, they have a lot of expert bow fire, which is great for you. 2, they have access to Círdan and Gil-galad. I would absolutely take these guys over a Sealdor and a captain of Numenor. The reason why is because Gil-galad creates another hard-hitting punch option, and actually for not that much more expensive. And Círdan makes you immune to, well, not immune, but resistant to siege weapon shots, which means you no longer have to play on their turf. It also allows you to be terrifying, so now hordes start to have a little bit more of a problem against you. It also makes you immune to fear tests, since he can generate courage bubbles. And his last ability to allow him to allow a hero to reroll failed wound rolls ensures that Elendil will always make his heroic combats. So you just keep casting on Elendil, and it's everything you need. So those 2 heroes make an absolute powerhouse combo. Círdan, I can't stress enough, and then Gil-galad. The best part is, with Gil-galad, you can get Fight 6 Kingsguard, which means every single one of your Numenorian ranks will be a threat even to heroes. I absolutely recommend the Fight 6. You also get more men, but with different options in the sense that you now have Defense 6. So with the elves, they can go to Defense 6, and therefore if you're fighting a, let's say, a Fight 3 army, swap it where your elves are in the front rank and your Numenorians are not. Then vice versa, if you're fighting a Strength 4 army, put your Numenorians in the front and then your elves in the back. This is just based on the wound chart and how it works. Now, there's a little bit of flexibility to this. If your opponent has strength, or if you need to keep your strength 4 to punch through the armor, then you may, kind of flex this around a little bit. But you get the point that you have that flexibility to pick what you want in the front, based on the defensive option that you need. Also, as far as the rank and file style army, the Numenorians and the elves seem like a natural fit. The elves lack the punching power, which the Numenorians give them, and then the elves win the fight for you with the Fight 6. Fight 5 if you really want to save the points, but I would recommend the Kingsguard for really, in most games, just taking away like 2 or 3 Numenorians pretty much outfits everyone as Kingsguard. You're not getting more than 18 elves, so Gil-galad brings all the ones that you really need. Rivendell Knights also create a solid cavalry option, not only a highly mobile unit, but packs a punch, and it's pretty much everything you need. The sort of a Swiss Army knife of cavalry options. And then, of course, the elf bow. The elf bow makes it where even though you have limited bows compared to your opponent, with a combination of blinding light, that means that you will outshoot your opponent because with their bonus, the Rivendell bonus allows you to re-roll your failed to hit rolls. You only need a few bows to do a lot of damage, and the fact that they can't really shoot back and be as effective is always what you need. So for this reason, I would say that you should, if you want to play competitively, you should think of the Numenorian army as a last alliance army, or at least until they get updated. So in that sense, you should absolutely play elves with this force. And because of that reason, I'd like to introduce the how to buy section as also with the elves. Keep in mind, you can only really play, buy the box set as Numenorians and elves anyway, so this kind of works out. But just so you're aware, I would optimally play this as an elven Numenorian force. Now, as far as allies, I mean, we can talk about a few other options. Gwahir for the same exact points as Isildur. No, I'm sorry. He's 15 points more, but a whole lot better. I mean, a higher fight value, a higher strength, highly more maneuverable, same amount of might points. I mean, Gwahir is an amazing option instead of Isildur. So if you find yourself having enough men by just picking captains and Elendil, then Gwahir is a great option. And his maneuverability should allow you to deal with siege weapons a little bit easier and such like that. And also enemy heroes. And then Thranduil's Halls is also not a bad option. Now, I never really experimented with them quite as much, but their Palace Guard give you the Fight 6. They also have the Defense 6 that you might want. Well, it's a Fight 6 around Thranduil, but Thranduil is another powerhouse. He gives the Terror Bubble, Hour of Dismay, which is very helpful against hordes. Nature's Wrath, hey, no one's complaining about a free Nature's Wrath. And he is just another major threat that the opponent has to deal with. So he's something that I would, you could consider that option. I think Rivendell suits it better because they're convenient allies. But if you wanted to go that option, I don't think it wouldn't work. Alright, so now let's get into the how to buy part of this video. And this is where things get a little complicated. So what I want to do is talk about a starter army for the new player who wants to get into the game. And while I would love to just say buy Numenorians, it would get so immensely tough because the box set is a Numenorian High Elf combo. So you only really get 8 Numenorians in a pack, and that is really not going to work for your army. But you're going to get like 16 elves and then 8 Numenorians. So the box set is very clearly favoring the elven side of things. You could try to get the spear-armed warriors, but they're $15 for a set of 3. So as of right now, at the filming of this video, which is December 31st, 2018, the options aren't really going to work for you very well. But if I had to say for a new player wanting to start off in the game, here's what I would do. I would tell them to buy the Numenorian Last Alliance box set and actually just play a Last Alliance force. You really should think of Numenor and Rivendell as a single combined arms force if you really want to play effectively. Over time, you can build your Numenorian component, and ideally maybe even wait till it gets updated, but of course we don't know how long that's going to be. So if you really want to do just complete Numenor, then you're probably going to, let's hit it from the Last Alliance box set first. All right, so you hit the Last Alliance box set, and you're going to get about, 32 models. You're going to get 8 High Elf Swordmen, 8 High Elf Bowmen, and 8 Numenorians. So, a little more focused toward the High Elves, as mentioned, for $40. The best part is your Numenorian leadership is so cheap, being another $20. So now you're pretty much on your way, and then get Elrond and Gil-galad for the remaining 30. This is pretty much about the cheapest you should do it because Gil-galad and Elendil are already going to be so expensive that they're pretty much going to make up the points of everything you never need, and you can just do the rest in the other 2 heroes. Now, they all are dismounted, but Games Workshop doesn't sell a mounted version of any of these characters. Isildur they do, and Elrond they do, but having a foot version is not bad. It's thematic, It's thematic toward the lore of the movies that you see in the films. They're not all, any of them, or none of them are mounted anyway. So having them kind of walk around and make a mess of things even on foot, they are perfectly fine. They're going to be just as competitive that way. Oh, not just as competitive, but still competitive enough where you won't feel like you're losing games. So that is really what I would suggest to any new player that wants to do this, is function this as a Last Alliance style army. But let's say you really, really just want to make a full Numenorian force. That is where you're going to break the budget a little bit on me, but you're going to need about 30 Numenorians, even if you take a Sealdor and a captain. 30 Numenorians buying a $40 box set is just going to be pretty brutal on you. I would highly recommend eBay. The best advantage you have is that the Numenorians came out as the very first box set this game ever produced, which means everyone's got them. So you can find these things all over eBay, all over trade groups. I would not try to get them this way. If you must, then you're probably going to be unloading like $300 on this. But if you don't, then eBay might give you like maybe 30 Numenorians for $30. I mean, these guys are really, really common all over the place. So that's how I would do it if I had to suggest someone just getting the game, though. Just hold off until an actual Numenorian supplement and do Last Alliance, all in general. And over time, you'll build up that Numenorian component. So anyway, guys, that's what I have for you today. Let me know if you have any questions on this faction. Hopefully it doesn't get updated in the next month, so that way I don't have to review this video and redo it all over again. But let me know if you guys want me to discuss and talk about any faction of your choice, and I will talk to you all very soon.